Hi guys, it's Daly here with a special PalaceFanTV video on my all-time Palace 11. People on Twitter have been tweeting out their favourite 11s of all time, including Steve Parish. So we thought at PalaceFanTV we would do the same thing. So Jay and I are going to be revealing our favourite all-time Palace 11s. So here we go. My first game ever was the 1st of January 1992 in the old First Division at home to Notts County. I was 8 years old and my dad took me along and Palace won 1-0, the goal scorer being Marco Gabbiadini. So with that in mind, my Palace 11 is players since then that I've watched and enjoyed watching for Palace. So in goal, Julian Speroni. I think he'll be in most people's teams, although it'll be a close one between him and Nige. Although anyone older would probably go for someone like John Jackson. But for me, Jules has been in goal for, I mean, probably half of my Palace supporting career, as it were. And, you know, despite everything, despite the mistakes recently and stuff and what people think, the guy's been an absolute legend. He's an incredibly nice guy. He loves Palace as much as the fans do. And he's pulled off some incredible saves down the years. You know, most notably that one in the playoff final against Brighton a couple of years ago, which if he hadn't done that, would we be where we are now? Sitting mid-table in the Premier League? Probably not. So in goal for me is Jules. At right back is Mark Edworthy, who played for Palace from about 95 to 98, I think. He was sort of sweeper right back, but seemed to play most of his time at full back for Palace. He liked getting forward. I think he won Player of the Season as well in 98, 97 when we were in the Premier League, but went down after not winning a home game till April. What I liked about Edworthy was the fact that he was quick, he got forward a lot, but he also had a very good 90s curtains haircut thing going on, which I was a big fan of and tried to grow myself at the time as a teenager. So for that reason, Edworthy is at right back for me. At left back is a player that didn't play many games for Palace, but had a sort of lasting impression on me, despite the fact that he's gone on to turn into a bit of a prick. But he was brilliant, and that's Ashley Cole, who was on loan for Palace in 2000 for about 3 or 4 months. The guy was only 18 at the time. It was absolute class. This is very much during my sort of heyday as a Palace fan. You know, I was about 17, 18. You know, you're just obsessed with Palace, and you go every week, home and away, and everything's about Palace. And I was at college every day writing down my favourite Palace teams and stuff. And Ashley Cole was part of that team. We weren't a very good team at the time. We were in administration, struggling to stay up, and he was an absolute shining light, and scored a goal against Blackburn at the end of the season, which helped keep Palace up. So Ashley Cole's at left back for me. My centre backs are two players actually played together, probably only a few times, and that's Fancy He and Craig Moore. I mean, Craig Moore played less games than Ashley Cole even. Was only here for a bit, but he was absolute class. He was sort of the Scott Dan before Scott Dan arrived a couple of years ago. He was absolutely brilliant. I don't think we ended up paying for him because we couldn't afford him, so he went back to Rangers. But he was absolutely brilliant. And alongside him, Fancy He, who was just an absolute cult hero. I mean, he also played in midfield and up front for Palace. He was borderline crazy, but he was absolutely brilliant. And again, I think one Player of the Season in 99 or 2000. He was just an absolute legend. I'm going to play 4 across the middle. I'm going to go for a classic 4-4-2. On right midfield is probably the best player I've ever seen play for Palace, and that is Attilio Lombardo, who was just an absolute cut above the rest. I mean, he signed for us at a time when the team was good, but you know, probably wasn't Premier League standard. But he arrived almost in his prime. I think he was probably 28, 29, so he was still sort of at his peak from Juventus. And he was just a million times better than any of our other players. He was absolute class. He would quite often get the ball, do a little shimmy and a pass, and the rest of his team weren't quite on the same wavelength. But watching him play was an absolute joy. The fact we kept him when we went down as well for about 6 months before we ran out of money and had to sell him back to Italy. He was just an absolute joy to watch. And I think probably the best player I've ever seen play at Palace in my time. Left midfield is a player who was sort of tailing off as I started watching Palace, and that was John Solarco, of course, who had a lot of injuries and was very unlucky with that. But what a traditional, classic, flying left midfielder. Could put a cross in without even breaking stride. I mean, it was a real gem. Such a shame about his injuries. Could have gone on to have I think, glittering England career in a position that England struggled to fill. Has since gone on though to do well in the media, and is a very, very nice guy as well. Another one who's got a lot of love for Palace from his time down here. So left mid for me is John Salako. My central midfielders, a bit controversial. I'm gonna go for Jeff Thomas. Again, an absolute legend. First name that I had on the back of one of my Palace shirts, which would have been, I guess, 92, 93. Again, a very nice guy. Just an absolute leader in the middle. You know, the Jednak of his time, for any of you younger fans. Should have played more games for England. Played 7 or 8 games, I think. England never lost while he played. But unfortunately, he was remembered for a chip against France that went out for a throw-on, I think. But was a very, very good all-round competent midfielder. I'm going to pair him in midfield with a guy who was, again, a very classy player, but never really hit the heights. That's Hayden Mullins, another player that I had on the back of my shirt. He was absolute class. He was very silky. He played sweeper most of the time, but sort of moved into central midfield. And was just very calm. His nickname was Cash, because he was very casual on the ball, which sometimes when he was playing sweeper would actually get the team into trouble. But he was absolutely brilliant. And again, as I was sort of 17, 18, watching him play as I grew up, I loved him. And again, a player that I tried to sort of emulate when I played Sunday League and youth football, and never quite did. But he's going to go in midfield. I was going to put Jednak in there, because I think Jednak is proving himself to be one of our best. But I'm going all nostalgic for my team, so it's going to be Mullins and Jeff Thomas in the middle. And up front, I'm going to again go for flair players, because that's kind of what I love. And again, when I try to play football, that's kind of how I play. So the first one's a bit controversial again, and despite everything that's happened since, I'm going to go with Dougie Freedman, because it's absolute joy to watch as a player. Incredibly talented, could turn a game, you know, with one move. I remember one game at home to someone years ago, Sheffield United, maybe something like that. It was heading for a drab draw, or we were losing or something. It was terrible. Dougie came off the bench, did one little turn, took 2 players out of the game, squared to McAnuff. We scored, or equalised, or won, whatever. The point was, he managed to change the game with one little shimmy. Obviously, what's happened with the manager stuff has kind of soured everything a little bit. But if you take him based on just as a player, I think he's one of the best we ever had, and was just brilliant to watch. And my final player is going to be another flair player up front, and probably I know I said Lombardo was my favourite ever player, but this guy was someone that I was absolutely obsessed with as a kid, and that is Matt Jansen, who again was just like Freedman, an absolute joy to watch, incredibly talented, left foot, right foot, didn't matter what, scored some amazing goals, including his first goal away at Villa when we signed him in the Premier League, which I think was his first start or first appearance. I mean, what a way to announce yourself, sort of dribbled past 3 players and smashed it in from 25 yards. The guy it was like playing FIFA. He was incredible. Another one who was a very nice guy. Another one who unfortunately didn't quite reach his potential, went to Blackburn, and I had that motorcycle accident, of course, and never really made his potential. But had he not done that, I think he would have gone on to be one of England's greats. So there you go. That's my all-time Palace favourite 11. Maybe not the best 11, but my favourite 11 from players that I've watched over the years. So here's Jay with his favourite 11 as well. Thanks for watching this. We'll bring you our regular post-match videos after the next game. So subscribe for that. And comment below with your favourite ever Palace 11. Any of my players make your team, let me know. And see you again soon. Bye.
Hey guys, welcome to our special video for you this week. Hope you enjoy. It's me and Jim looking at telling you our favourite Palace 11. I say favourite, I think some of my decisions, I haven't seen Jim's, but some of my decisions will probably be ruled heart over head perhaps, so it's probably not the the best 11, but that's for everybody to argue, and everybody has their favourites, don't they? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with from the back, goalkeeper position. Tough one. I mean, there's a few keepers that spring to mind. I would throw in Matt Clark, who unfortunately due to injury, he wasn't with us very long, and I do think he would have been a really top keeper had he stayed injury free, unfortunately. But obviously add to that Sprony. But my choice for my goalkeeper, for my Palace 11, is Nigel Martin. top goalkeeper, probably from my time watching Palace, the first real goalkeeper that felt as though it was a real addition to the team. £1 million goalkeeper from from Cornwall, and he was absolutely immense. He was a great. He commanded his area. I mean, he replaced Perry Suckling, and he was a real addition to the side, and obviously worth every penny. And went on to obviously play for England, and went on to Leeds and Everton. So that's my goalkeeper. As for the back line, I will start with left back. I struggled with this position. There are a few names out there that I really enjoyed Danny Granville playing for us at left back. Wholehearted player. But I think that left back position is one that we've always struggled with. And for me, my choice as my Palace 11 left back is Ashley Cole, on loan from Arsenal. Learned his trade at Palace, and has gone on to bigger and better things. But he was absolutely fantastic filling in for us for the time he was with us. And it says a lot that a player on loan at Palace makes a Palace 11. I'm sure I'm not alone in saying that. Across the back line, I've got two central defenders. I mean, there's so many central defenders that I could have chosen from. Tony Popovic, I really like playing for Palace. Eric Young is another one. But for me, my first centre-back and the first player from the current Palace 11 is Scott Dann. Absolutely immense at centre-back. He's been a massive player for us, and at a snip as well. It really commands the centre-back position and encourages others along with him. And he's the best centre-back I've seen at Palace since my second choice to play alongside him in this Palace 11 is Australian Craig Moore. He was very similar player to Scott Dann is now, if nobody has heard of or seen Craig Moore play, but he was so assured on the ball. He could spray the ball from the centre back position and pick a pass really well. And for me, it was a real sad time to see him return to Rangers. It was around the time of our administration, and we got him from Rangers, and he returned because we couldn't fulfil the rest of the payments, I believe, from memory. So that's my centre back pairing, Craig Moore and Scott Dann. As for right back, it's a position where we've had quite a multitude of talents, and for me, I'm only talking about my time watching Palace. There's quite a few to name. Joel Ward is obviously a star for us at the moment, but for me, the player that's really impressed me in that position over the time I've watched Palace is Nathaniel Clyne, the current Southampton left back. He's broken into the England squad, which is fantastic to see, and he's just got natural ability. He came through the ranks at Palace, obviously. And he performed for us well, and over time I think Joe Ward may well eclipse him, perhaps, maybe, but for me, in my that makes that fills the back line for me. The four across the back is and finishes that spot is Nathaniel Clyne. So he joins Craig Moore, Scott Dann, and Ashley Cole, and Nigel Martin in goal. I'm going for an old-fashioned 4-4-2, which is a formation that Palace played an awful lot in my time watching Palace, and late 80s, early 90s. It was a formation that we tended to master, and two wide players, and that's what I'm going to go with. The first one is arguably the best player, the single most skillful player I've seen, or influential player I've seen to put on a Palace shirt. Again, lots of players that we've had, wide players, play for Palace. But my choice, and probably first on the team sheet, would be Attilio Lombardo. I'm simply stunned when we signed a player of his calibre. Formerly of Juventus and Sampdoria, Italian international. It was people talk about marquee signings for clubs, but he really was that. And I know I think he played less than 40 games for Palace. He had an injury which saw us, that was instrumental in us going down. We missed him big time from a top division. But he was a player. You have players now that get you off your seat, stand up and anticipate what they're going to do. But Lombardo did it every time, and still one of my favourite players ever to play for Palace. On the other side, winger. I mean, Wilf is fantastic for us at the moment. Balassi is. I tend to look back a bit further, and I absolutely love watching John Solarco play for us. He could deliver a ball, the ball that you want a winger to deliver. into the box, and obviously, you know, we had the centre forwards at the time to, you know, to finish those off. So Solarco's my choice on the other side of midfield. The two central midfielders, again, a multitude of talents. I mean, I used to love watching Andy Gray. You got Jednak at the moment, but I'm going to go back a bit again, and one of my favourite ever players for Palace is Jeff Thomas. The headers, you know, the late runs into the box, scoring a header, you know, that was his trademark. You know, he did it so many times for Palace, and he led, you know, from example. I mean, he you know, he's Palace captain, and he played some. He had some great games for us, and, you know, got stuck in the middle. I wouldn't say the most talented player for Palace, but he wore his heart on his sleeve, and he carried us through a lot of games, which, you know, is what captains do. Alongside him, I'm going to go for a very similar player, a cult hero at Palace, and that's Aki Riolati, Finnish international. You know, not the most talented of players, but you know, he made up for that with, you know, yeah, his reliability in the middle, his battling qualities, and alongside Thomas, that makes a formidable midfield. Again, you know, I could have a massive subs bench for this choice of Palace 11, but it's going to be one long bench. But the two players up front, again, it's so difficult to choose. You know, you've got AJ, Clinton Morrison, Matt Jansen. I've overlooked all of those, including Mark Bright. For me, it's got to be Ian Wright. Did so much for us when he played for Palace. I mean, those two goals in the FA Cup final against United just epitomises everything about Ian Wright, and the goals that he scored. You know, fantastic servant, great goals, and went on to bigger and better things, obviously, which, you know, is a shame for Palace at the time, but, you know, we move on, but remember him fondly, scoring lots of goals. And finally, the last player that I'm going to select for my 11 is Dougie Freeman. I've mentioned a few players that, you know, I've chosen him above, and I think that says a lot about the type of player that he was. You know, in his couple of spells for Palace, he could create something from nothing. He could run with the ball would stick to his feet. He scored some great goals. I think there was a great goal at Wolves, I remember well, that he scored, and I just love Dougie. I really did. And even though he's managed the club and he's gone on to other things, you know, I always wish him well, and look back fondly to what he did for Palace and the goals that he scored. Love watching him play, talented player, and I think he would probably work well with Ian Wright up front. But I've gone on a bit there. That's my Palace 11. Be interested to see what Jim's chosen, or what players Jim's chosen, if he's chosen any similar to mine. And it'd be great to hear what your Palace 11 is. And thanks for PalaceFanTV for asking me to share this with you. Hope you've enjoyed. Leave us your comments as usual, and we'll be back soon with another video. Cheers, thanks for watching.